A few weeks ago, we started talking about this text by Dogen called Butsudo, which is sometimes also called Doshin. So the way of the Buddhas or the mind of the way. And in this text, very, very short, fairly obscure, Dogen lays out 5 practices that are the way of the Buddhas. This is how we follow the way of the Buddhas. And the first was to cultivate the mind of the way, which, though easier said than done, feels kind of obvious in a way, especially if we've been having this conversation for a long time. If we've been talking with Dogen, if we've been talking with Keizan, we understand that there's a starting point that maybe goes deeper than what we would expect. And then the second practice, the second element of this path, says Dogen, is to recite the 3 treasures, to take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and to do it constantly. And he describes you should be doing it as you're dying. You should be doing it in the space between death and birth. You should be doing it as you're being born, as you eat, as you sleep, as you walk, as you stand, as you sit, to be constantly taking refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And then we get to number 3, which I think might come as a surprise because it's a little outside of the conversation we usually have with Dogen. He writes, again, we should work to produce a Buddha during this life. Having produced it, we should make 3 kinds of offerings to it. The 3 kinds are the grass seat, sugar syrup, and lamps. We should offer these. Now, your ears might perk up when you hear Dogen say that we should produce a Buddha. Because a favorite story of Dogen's and a favorite story within this tradition is about the teacher interrogating the student in Zazen and saying, what are you trying to do? And when the student says, I'm trying to make a Buddha, the teacher makes fun of him. Right? He starts polishing a roof tile. And when the student says, what are you doing? He says, I'm trying to make a mirror. Making clear, you can't make something out of something else. A Buddha is a Buddha is a Buddha. If you're sitting as Buddha, there's nothing to make. If you're not sitting as Buddha, there's nothing about the practice of Zazen that creates one. So when I first read this text, I think, oh, what is he saying to do? Now he's saying, go make a Buddha. But it's actually very literal. He's saying, and it makes more sense in the context of his time and his place, make a Buddha statue. Make an actual Buddha. And if you don't make a Buddha, the other way that you might have kind of pursued this practice would have been to help sponsor one, because there was a lot of creation of Buddhist stuff. So participate in the Buddhist world in these ways. Make a Buddha by making a Buddha image. As I mentioned last time or the time before, there's an observation made by the translators of this text that really 4 out of 5 of these practices are indistinguishable from practices suggested in other traditions. It just seems like a very simple manual for lay people. And I think what we could do if we wanted to, if we wanted to be dismissive, if we wanted to keep this simple, would be to read this one, number 3, and say, well, that's not really relevant to me. Because it's speaking to Japan 800 years ago, where this was something people did. Where sponsoring the carving of a great Buddha, whether one of these huge, huge things that are installed outdoors, or a Buddha that goes into a temple, or a Buddha that goes into a home altar, was just part of the fabric of the tradition, part of this larger project of making merit. There are a lot of ways that we're told we can make merit. Chanting is the making of merit. When we're done chanting, we offer the merit. Copying sutras is making merit. Making Buddhist art is making merit. Contributing to a temple is making merit. All of these things that get caught up in this confusing discussion about what is offering and what is a kind of transaction with the universe, where if I produce something good, maybe I get something good. So here in our context in 2024, there is an argument that could be made that we might just kind of skip this one because it feels so located somewhere else. But I want to at least invite us to consider that this has meaning. That what Dogen is asking people to do in this text, in this short moment, is he's asking us to take up the practice of offering. He starts with cultivating the mind. And then he says, let go, take refuge, throw yourself into something other than yourself. And then he says, take up the practice of offering. And he specifically says to offer a Buddha. But it doesn't have to be a Buddha. It can be anything. Anything. In the same way that we can't sit in Zazen as Buddha without this little bit of confidence that we belong there. We can't offer things without the confidence that we have something to offer. If the project is that confidence, if the project is understanding how and what we can offer to others, we might start with something real. And if what is important to us is this practice, it might be a Buddha. It might be an image of a Buddha. It might be a drawing. Maybe it's graffiti. Maybe we post a picture of a Buddha somewhere so that others might see it because it feels concrete. It feels like, oh, I'm giving you this. This has meaning to me. Maybe it has meaning to you. But that's just a step toward understanding that we can offer anything. The practice of offering merit is so profound. Whether it turns into merit or not is irrelevant. We say at the end of this ceremony, may the merit of this extend to all, universally to all, so that our lives might be an offering to all. and that all beings may realize the awakened way. And it comes after a lot of prostrations and a lot of chants, and so it feels like it fits. But you could say that phrase anytime. You could say it after a meal. You could say it in the supermarket. You could say it as you take a walk. You could say it when you wake up or when you go to bed. May the merit of this extend universally to all. And you don't need to know what the merit is. You don't need to know what it's worth. You don't need to know who it's touching or what it's touching or how far it goes. The practice isn't the knowing. The practice is the giving away. There's a nice little touch in what Dogen writes, because he says that you should produce a Buddha during this life. And then he says, having produced it, you should make the three kinds of offerings to it: the grass seat, the sugar syrup, and lamps. Which is to say, having made an offering, you should make an offering to the offering. Create a hall of mirrors where offering begets offering, begets offering, begets offering. He's speaking from a long time ago, and he's saying that you place the Buddha on something, and in front of it you offer like a sweetened water and lamps, which you if you've ever seen a puja offering, right? Here we just have candles. In modern temples today, we offer we have a few kinds of offerings. Flowers are an offering. Candles are an offering. Incense is an offering. These are the three most basic. And then when we do special ceremonies, we offer to the Buddha sweetened water and tea and sweets. And if we're doing a really big ceremony, we offer all of those things, and then we actually create a little meal for the Buddha that has all the parts of a regular meal, and we offer it to the Buddha. And so there's 7 things that we might give. And as I'm always saying at retreats, it's not, when we give a cup of tea to the Buddha, we're not expecting the Buddha to drink it. We're just giving. Lighting incense is a way of giving. It's not about the atmospherics. It's saying, I want to give something, but I don't know how. So I'm going to give this. And when we walk outside and we take a step, we can offer that step. Because sometimes we don't know what else to offer. But in this moment, this is what I have. I have this step, so I offer that. I offer this bite. I've given this example before, but sometimes you're standing in a crowd and you can't move. You can't go left or right or backward or forward, and yet still this is your practice and you want to offer. You need to offer, you need to give something. And so from this confined space, in this confined body, you just stand up straight. And in bringing that little bit of effort to this moment, you give what you have, even if what you have is something no one else can see, something no one else can feel. At least you didn't withhold it. You offered it up to the world. That's what we do. That's this part of this practice. Now, at the end of this, if you want to get out your carving knives and a piece of wood and make a Buddha, that's great. I think that's a great thing to do. That's a wonderful practice. Or draw it or paint it. But it doesn't have to be like that. We breathe out and we offer our entire life. And then we do it again, and we do it again, and we do it again. Until it's the last thing that we do. And that's where I'll stop.